Dr. Manish Arora ji, I welcome you to this video recording for the Nurturing Smart Teachers, and the subject of IPR, particularly copyright, is very important. We'll be talking about that. And my first question that comes to my mind is, what is intellectual property right, and how would you tell the faculty that it is important in our lives?
Okay, yes, intellectual property right is now it's a global concept and now quite prevalent, and it is actually what we shortly call it as an IPR, intellectual property rights. It consists of many parts now, but the mainstream there are three basic issues in intellectual property rights, and that is uh, copyrights, trademarks, and patents. But there are many more branches to it now, like geographical indications, semiconductors, Designs Act, and everything. So there are a lot of other aspects too, but majorly it is constrained into three basic aspects, and that is copyrights, patents, and trademarks. And when you say that how it is useful or how it affects a day-to-day life, is basically intellectual property rights are concerned with the trade and commerce. And trade and commerce, I would say, it deals with every day whatever we buy, even online we buy it, offline we buy it, whatever. Even if you are buying a cold drink, a Coke has a trademark, and the Coke also has a patent of making its contents. Similarly, it's competing with Pepsi. So why you buy Coke and why you buy Pepsi? Why you buy Apple or why you buy Samsung? Why you buy shoes of Adidas or you buy shoes of Puma, or so many things, even in food, clothes, everything what we in daily use we buy. It is all is constrained and related to IPR somehow. Even you buy a book, you know that you buying a book, maybe your author is residing thousands miles across the globe, but whenever you buy a book, something out of it goes back to the author. So that means there is some connection, some activity going on between within the intellectual property rights, whatever we do everywhere.
Okay, thanks. Now, you have your background in Harvard. You've been connected with the institution even after you left as a student there. Now, can you name some prominent law colleges globally which have sort of worked and which are known for their IPR teaching?
Okay, yes. I will start back from India itself. There weren't many IPR. Initially, there were no even IPR courses was not there in the curriculum of law in India. But now IPR is like at all the law schools, at all the universities. We have IPR as a curriculum. So, but talking about some specialized courses on IPR in India, even now all the national law schools and major central universities, they have some special IPR courses running. And a very good initiative which was taken a couple of years back was Rajiv Gandhi Institute, a school of intellectual property under the IIT Kharagpur, and it's still
Okay,
going on. So IIT Kharagpur has a IPR related subjects, and they do even law, giving an IPR specialization.
okay.
But if we talk globally, there are many of them. There are many of them. But to name a few specific ones, I would say, like there is one Franklin Pierce Law Center, which is under the University of New Hampshire in US. And then there is another which is Antonin Scalia School of Law in George Mason's University in Victoria in the Washington DC. And then a lot of good universities like Harvard and Yale and Stanford especially, they have IPR centers, and where they do a lot of courses which run from 3 weeks to even 1 year and 2 years, long courses, small courses, and there are all specialized courses in IPR.
Okay. Now, speaking to the young teachers of IPR law, how would you explain to them that teaching of IPR is different than, say, teaching of other conventional law subjects?
Yes, that is for sure. The teaching of IPR is quite different from if we compare it with teaching of other conventional subjects. Why? Because IPR is, first of all, it's an international subject, and it has a lot of things to play. Like, I must also tell teachers that intellectual property rights teaching is very interesting, because it is too interesting, not only for the teacher to teach, but also the students get involved in the IPR teachings, in the IPR courses, to a different extent. And IPR is, because of its jurisdiction, it is not only constraint for an Indian law, because there could be one material which is maybe produced in a one country and being distributed and being sold, and the intellectual property rights are being protected at a global level, at many different things. Even if you talk any multinational brand today, or even in Indian brands today, you talk about McDonald's maybe like it's a US brand, it's a US company, but it might be, if you go to any country today, you'll find McDonald's with the same kind of a logo, with the same kind of a food quality, with same kind of an ambience in their showrooms and everything. So these kind of things definitely make IPR something very vibrant, even for teaching. And especially in the why it makes very different from other conventional also is the case law based. Again, IPR is totally case law based subject, where you are not only relying on the cases of your own jurisdiction, but you have to rely on cases which are transborder, and so many other aspects. So IPR teaching, I would say, is not that as conventional, but it is purely on a very practical basis, more on.
Now, Manishi, you yourself are an author, you are a publisher, you have been editor of journals and books, etc., and you are also a teacher. Uh, I will move from IPR specifically to copyright. What would you like to talk about the teaching of and importance of copyright, having regard to your different roles where you have acquired your own individual experience?
Okay, so teaching of copyright, definitely that has been my passion since many years, because I'm born in a publishing family, and then obviously, and that also a law publishing family. So the law and publishing and the copyright were quite interlinked for me since my childhood. And so I would say that in copyright, when we come to the context teaching of copyright, I would say there are certain aspects which are very important for teaching, for any teacher, any law teacher who comes to teach copyright law especially, is like, we have to first of all explain a student of law that what is copyrightable, what is not copyrightable. There are many things which you think that you can have a copyright on it, but you actually cannot have a copyright. For example, historical facts. You know that Taj Mahal was built by so and so in the year so and so for so and so. That is okay. But a history book, any book you pick up which is talking about Taj Mahal, will be talking the same issues, the same points, but in a different format, in a different language, in a different expression. So that is, first thing is that we need to tell the student like what is copyrightable, what is not copyrightable, and then what are the exceptions to copyright. As I gave you, an exception is like historical facts, but there are other exceptions also which are laid down in the Copyright Act itself in India, and obviously internationally. For example, if we talk about some newspaper is free to cover many things. Even a lecture by a Prime Minister of India, a newspaper can quote it in inverted commas, thoroughly, a complete word to word. They can quote, they can transcript, but and there is no copyright violation in that. But whereas if we talk about somebody coming out with a book containing the speeches by the Prime Minister of India, they cannot do it without taking the permission of the Prime Minister or the PMO or whatever, whoever is the owner of
Yes.
copyright. So nobody can do that. So these are exceptions. So need to talk about exceptions. Then we need to also correctly talk about like the agreements, because agreement is again the starting point of any copyright issue. And what I always teach my student is like the agreement, that means the copy between the author and the publisher, is something like it's a wedding trust. So, and it is based on trust itself. And so the agreement has to be, so we explain normally to students about each and every point of agreement, like how this particular point affects, how this particular points might affect in the in case of litigation. And then because a lot of comparisons also are needed in this, a lot of comparisons are needed, where we can say that international comparisons. And the reason for that is that when we talk about a lawyer who's a copyright lawyer, he might be either his client might be an Indian company, but whose books or whose material is being online or somewhere internationally, and whereas his client could be a multinational company who are also operating in India, kind of thing. So we need to know the compatibility of certain aspects on basically like international aspects and the Indian aspects. So comparison of international comparison of laws, international laws, is also quite important.
Okay, we come now to the end of the part one, and we will move to part two video shortly.